Hey everyone, I am here for my mini training that I like to do on Thursdays. Bear with me, I'm like a minute or two late here because I wasn't really loving my setup because I have like notes that I refer to throughout these to make sure that I don't forget anything. And my phone was being weird. I was like looking down. Long story short, we're here, we're doing it. And today we're talking all about how to prioritize your nutrition to make sure that you keep your menstrual cycle healthy. So this one is definitely more for people that experience a menstrual cycle, but I think it's also really educational if you don't know that much about it or don't have one either. I think it's cool to learn something new. So hopefully you find value in this. Again, we're just I'm not really diving in too much on the training aspect, but I might touch on some things to think about your training regarding your menstrual cycle. But really this is like nutrition things for that, since that's more my scope. That being said, I also wrote a whole morning chalk up article about this topic that I'm going to kind of refer to throughout this mini training, but I will drop the link below to the article as well if you want to give that a read. All right. So I'm going to go over the six main things, like six main nutrition strategies to consider for a healthy menstrual cycle. Now, these are both to support a healthy cycle and help relieve some physical symptoms as well. So I just want to make sure that that's super clear. So the first thing is that you're getting enough energy. So we expend energy in multiple different ways throughout our day, whether it's purposeful exercise or fidgeting, or even your food digesting, right? Those are all ways we do it. So the biggest thing with this is making sure you're eating enough just to match your energy output needs. So I'm not talking about people that are putting themselves in like a deficit or a surplus because you're technically manipulating your intake to get a specific result. I think the best starting point you can do, especially if you're really, really new to all of this, is just eating enough and at your maintenance level for anywhere for 2 to 4 weeks before you decide to put yourself in a deficit or a surplus. Honestly, maintenance is a beautiful place to be, and I encourage you to be there for a majority of your year anyway. So the big thing is to make sure you're eating enough. It really, really helps in your metabolic health too. So if you're someone who's constantly yo-yo dieting, going in and out of cuts, or chronically living at a low calorie intake, not supporting your energy needs, that's just not setting you up for success for a healthy menstrual cycle. So that's something that's like a really, really basic, good starting point. The next is eating enough carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are just like an easy type of fuel that our bodies like to pull from, especially during activity. So if you're too low, there's some things you can do hormonally that's not super helpful. So just making sure you have enough there is important as well. A good starting point with this is making sure that you have a carbohydrate present at every meal, right? To help form that complete meal. And you guys, I probably sound like a broken record talking about complete meals, but you can get carbohydrates in many different forms, right? Fruit, veggies, starchy options too. And I think it's good to have a variety of them. And so again, making sure you have enough at each meal, and then you may be someone who needs to add more in snacks and also around training, before, during, after. It all really comes down to how much you're doing, how much intensity. I don't really like to say you have to earn the right to eat anything, but the more active you are, the more carbohydrates you're going to need. So, and you'll find helpful in your training. So that's a easy thing. If you're someone who struggles to eat carbs or not sure what carbs to pick around training, I always encourage those like bland colored carbs because they're super easy to digest, but you don't want to forget to have those colorful carbs too from your fruits and vegetables throughout your day. Just be mindful, the more color there is, there might be more fiber, and you probably want to keep those away from training. So that's my little tips around that. No, sorry. Number 3 is to drink enough water. So water is more of an essential nutrient than carbohydrates. So making sure you're drinking enough of that is vital for so many things and processes that happen within our body. So you probably can't get good enough at this. So if you think you're doing a good job, like keep doing better, because I think it's like just one of those really common things to kind of fall off when we get busy, or maybe it's just me, just totally fine. I'm human too, but I think the thing about water that's really nice is that it's instantly gratifying, right? It's an easy, tangible task. You say, I want to drink 3 of these a day. You get 1 down, you check your box, you get 2 down, you check it again, 3, boom, you're crushing it for the day, right? So it's an easy habit to incorporate. And then the biggest thing is just upholding it, making sure you don't do too much too soon. Make sure you're reaching your minimum requirements for the day. I think I broke that down in another mini training. I can kind of put that in there as well in the comments or something for you guys. And then number 4 is eating enough fiber. Fiber is like a superior thing that probably isn't talked about enough because it's so basic and not like sexy, but it does so many good things for our body, especially regarding digestion, and keeps things moving in that way. And it can be found in other things but besides just vegetables. So make sure you kind of are paying attention to that number. A lot of times I will set a fiber target for clients. And it's not one you can really like physically go in and preset in a lot of the macro tracking apps, but you can view it as you're planning out your days. So that's something to think about. And now if you're someone who doesn't macro track at all, that's totally okay. Just knowing what foods are high in fiber and making sure that you have some of that at every meal is a good starting point, okay? So important. And number 5 is consume vitamins and minerals to support your menstrual cycle. Sorry, words are hard right now. So some of these include, but are not limited to, B vitamins, iron, magnesium, vitamin D, and omega-3s. Now, I'm just going to put a little disclaimer here that all supplemental nutritional fitness advice should be consulted with your primary care physician first before you take it from anybody, including myself. So you take full responsibility taking that advice on you. But those are the ones that are shown to help support your menstrual cycle specifically. So you can check those out. I actually have an endorsement with Thorne. It's a very, very high supplement brand. If you're not a client, official client with me on there yet, this is just like a sidebar, but can be very helpful. All you have to do is hit me up with your email and I already know your name, so that would be easy. I'll send you an invite to be an official client of mine on there, and you make login credentials, and then you receive 15% off of Thorne products for the rest of your life. As long as you're logged in with those credentials, it's a really good deal. I think at the top, I do have a pinned link for that too. So if you want to purchase from my affiliate link, you'll automatically receive that 15% off as well, if you want to take that shortcut. You can find all of those supplements on my page as well. So something to consider there, and who doesn't love a discount, right? Okay. And then number 6 is determining your trigger foods, right? So I'm sure all of you know when that time comes around, maybe you have cravings a little bit more than usual, and you tend to possibly even overeat on specific foods. So those are like the trigger foods. Those are the foods that cause us to maybe downward spiral or over consume a little bit more. And there's 100,000 reasons why that's happening. And it's probably different per person, but something to think about is when you do have your menstrual cycle, your body's doing a whole nother activity and process in our bodies. So it actually increases your BMR by like a full 1 to 2%. So your BMR is like your total number of calories required just to survive and just to have you function. So you adding another function in your body, like another function it's doing on top of everything else, it burns that many more calories. So that's typically why you're craving. There's a lot to do with like other cravings that we experience during our menstrual cycle too. A lot of people might experience chocolate, and you might be low in magnesium. So like those are like what I would consider cellular hunger, like, right? So on a cellular level, your body might be deficient or losing something during that time. So you're craving those things, and it's totally normal. So whether you get it from real whole foods, which I always promote first, or supplement as necessary, I think it's good to be aware of what your trigger foods are. Can you pinpoint them? Are you mindful? Can you look to incorporate certain things to help that cellular hunger so you're avoiding the bingey type episodes from happening? So when I say binge eating, I mean there's a sense of loss of control. So it's not just like you're overeating more because you're hungry. You're actually like kind of almost in a fight or flight mode where you don't really have any more control over it, or it's very hard to manage. Your rate of speed of eating might pick up. You might not be like tuned into anything else going on. Those are some of those that some people can experience that. And a really good tip, which sounds like self-explanatory, but easier said than done sometimes. But if you binge on it, don't buy it. Don't put it in your cart, right? It's almost like self-sabotage in that way. So I don't want to go down a rabbit hole about that, but just knowing your trigger foods, identifying them, and even thinking about like purposefully adding in maybe 1 or 2 foods to help what those cravings typically are to negate them might be a really, really good idea too. Even if it's just for the first 2 days that your cycle's present, or maybe it's the week leading up, right? So whatever that looks like for you, definitely consider doing that. So to recap, nutrition strategies to help support a healthy menstrual cycle are eating, make sure you're getting enough energy, eating enough food, eating enough carbohydrates, drinking enough water, eating enough fiber, choosing vitamins and minerals that support your menstrual cycle and work well for you and are approved by your primary care physician, and then determining your trigger foods. All right. Like I said, I'm not going to get really into the training stuff, just some other like last parting words to think about to help you with this is, number 1, practicing compassion on yourself. That might sound super dorky, but our bodies are like doing some shit during that time. Sorry, my French share, but it's just keeping it real, right? It's doing a lot of work. So it's good to practice having a little compassion on yourself and maybe even adjusting a couple things because your body has the burden of a whole nother process during that time. So it's okay to shift things to another week if you can, or thinking about being proactive about that. Number 2 is review your own data. So we don't know what's going on if we don't track it, right? So if you're someone who doesn't even know when their menstrual cycle is coming, we don't even know if yours is healthy or not, or could it be better or worse. So definitely start with tracking your cycle and learning more specifically about your symptoms during certain times of your cycle. And then the last thing is to build a self-care menu, right? So maybe a list of like 6 to 8 things to do to prioritize your self-care for just that one time or the hardest time for you. And, you know, maybe making each of those things different time domains. So that's one thing that trips a lot of people up. On their self-care menu, they'll put all things that takes 20 minutes. And sometimes we don't have 20 minutes. We've got like 3 to spare. So maybe thinking like 2 under 5 minutes, 2 in the 10-minute range, 2 in the 15, 2 in the hour. I don't care what that looks like, but a good variety there will just make it so you can pick and pull and still feel like you're doing something to take care of yourself, but not putting a whole nother task on yourself to do it, right? So, and last but not least, don't hesitate to hit the pause button if you need to. Sometimes symptoms can be really debilitating, and it's important to take care of yourself and put anything on pause that you need to take care of yourself. So I hope you found this helpful today. If you have any more questions, some of this stuff can be super personal, so feel free to shoot me a DM personally. I'm totally okay with that. I'm happy to help. I'll drop that article in the comments with my YouTube page in case you guys want to check out the other videos too. All right, I'll see you next Thursday.